We've already explored the body of the TT685 version 2 from Godox. Now we want to look at the control panel and see what all the different buttons and controls do. To connect your flash to your speedlight, first of all you want to make sure that this locking mechanism is all the way to the left, and then you slide it onto your speedlight just like that, and then you just press it and slide it across. Now you want to make sure that your speedlight is off. I didn't do that, so you saw that speedlight flashing as it was connecting. That's not a good thing. So make sure your speedlight is off when you're connecting so that you don't short anything. The first thing we want to look at is the menu button, and that is the button to the extreme left of your speedlight. And when you press the menu button, you have access to all sorts of different controls and settings that you can adjust on your speedlight. So let's go through each of them quickly. Once you get into your menu, you can navigate each of the menu settings by rotating the dial clockwise or anti-clockwise. And then once you get to the item that you want to adjust, you just click the center button to select, and the specific feature is then highlighted, and again you can change by rotating the dial. And to accept whatever you've selected, all you do is select again. And then if you want to back out of this menu to go back to the normal screen, there is the return symbol that's available for you at the end there, and you just press on the button that's corresponding to that return and you're back to the normal screen. So let's go back into the menu and look at the different things that you can adjust. The first one is the distance measurement setting. You can either measure the distance in feet or in meters. That's your preference depending on the region and what you prefer working in. The next one, AF, is the autofocus assist beam. You can have that on or off. With the autofocus assist beam on, your speedlight shoots out a matrix of red lines that actually help your camera acquire focus in low light conditions. The next item is your standby, and this is either on or off, and basically it's just for your speedlight to switch off after a certain period of time of no use or to stay on. The next item is your RX standby. That standby mode is for when your speedlight is acting as a receiver. That is, it is being controlled by another speedlight or it's being controlled by a trigger, and you can set that to 60 minutes or 30 minutes. The next item that we have is your scan mode, and this has to do with the channels that the speedlight can work on most efficiently. So this feature allows the speedlight to scan your existing environment and find the cleanest channel over which it can communicate with triggers or other speedlights. So it's recommended that whenever you are setting up your wireless transmission that you scan first and then look for the cleanest channels that you can use. And we'll go into a bit more detail when we are setting this up to work with a trigger or with another speedlight. And then once you have selected your channel, you can go down to the next item, which is the channel item, and that's where you select the channel over which your speedlights and your triggers are going to be communicating over. The next one is your ID. This might be useful for you if you are shooting an event and there are other people using the same equipment. They're using Godox triggers and Godox speedlights. This just gives you added flexibility so that you can choose a different ID so that there's no crosstalk between your equipment and other people's equipment, so that they don't accidentally trigger your equipment and you don't accidentally trigger theirs when you are doing the shoot. If you're just a solo shoot, then the ID can just be kept off. It's not that useful. The next one is your beep, and this just allows the speedlight to make a sound. If you are shooting an event where silence is important, you might want to keep that sound off. The next item is the light, and that is the light that you are seeing here. When you are making adjustments, the light or the backlight comes on so that you can see your changes more clearly. So for the light, you can set it to 12 seconds so that after 12 seconds the LCD dims and saves battery life. You can set it to off so that the light doesn't come on at all, or you can have it on all the time. The next thing that you have is your LCD. This is not a particularly useful feature. For me, I feel this is not a particularly useful feature. It just changes the contrast of your LCD screen so that you're able to see things much clearer. When I've changed it, for me, it doesn't really make that much difference. So you can try it out for yourself and see if it helps you in any way. The next feature is your flash exposure bracketing auto cancel. Basically, you can set up your flash so that it takes 3 shots, one at the proper exposure that the flash thinks should be used in ETTL, and then 1 underexposed and 1 overexposed shots. And this is useful when you are doing things like HDR or high dynamic range photography. And so with this setting, you want to set it on so that once you are done with your exposure bracketing shooting, the flash resets and cancels that setting so that you don't accidentally continue shooting in flash exposure bracketing mode. And then the next item that we have on our menu is our TX mode. This TX function is used when you are using this flash as a transmitter and you are wanting to set the unit's flash firing to on or off. And then the next item, or the last item here, is your transmitter distance. And this is basically where you want to set the distance or the optimum distance that this unit is going to work on. If you're working in small environments like a studio, then you want your distance to be 0 to 30 meters. But if you're outdoor and you're working in wider spaces, you want to set it to 1 to 100 meters for the wireless signal to be effectively transmitted. Now, transmitting a wireless signal takes battery life. So if you are indoors, you don't want to necessarily have it on that 1 to 100 meters because that takes a bit more power and runs your batteries down much quicker. And so those are the items that we have in the menu. Next thing we want to look at are these different dials and buttons on the control panel and what they do.